right, Don, should we get started?
Yes.
Let's do it. We don't have to sit there awkwardly anymore. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. This is another carved out conversation. And in these events, we typically dissect a PR communications topic. Hopefully, we give you some food for thought, hopefully some practical advice, and we answer your questions, right? And in the past, we've tackled things like the Consumer Electronics Show, breaking through the noise there. We've also talked about modern media relations. We had some subject line breakdowns. Today's going to be fun. Today's going to be about PR near misses, but I'm not going to tell you what that is because I have somebody better here to do that for you. And that is TechTarget's Don Fluckinger. And I made sure to check that that is the right way to say it. He said I could flub it and it's fine, but it is Don Fluckinger. Thank you for being here, Don, with us today.
Thanks for having me today.
Of course. And I will say two things. Number one, had a lot of fun prepping for this one because as you will see, Don is fun. He's funny. He tells it like it is. He's out there. He's good. He's fun. You're gonna see it reflected in this conversation. And number two, he loves music. So we had an instant connection, and you're gonna see some of this later in the conversation. Before we get there, let me introduce myself. I am Maria Lascui. I'm with Carve Communications. At a high level, we are a PR agency. We do B2B and B2C PR, and we like to say that we are in the intersection of innovation and everyday life. And somebody like Don would probably say, what does that mean, Mariela? And what I would say is, our clients usually are disruptors in their industry. So to like give you a bit of a couple of examples, our CMS client, they are encouraging the industry to not just think about content management, take it beyond content management to digital experiences management. And toys, let's take it to a completely different direction. Toys, one of our biggest toy clients is encouraging us to see that toys are not just for kids. Why should they be just for kids, right? Don't we all like to play? So toys can be for everyone. And I'm wholeheartedly on that side. I don't know about you. What about you, Don?
If you saw my place, well, you'll see it on the next slide, but
okay. And with that, let's really intro Don now. I'm not going to read his bio because it would be boring. So I'm going to let Don just introduce himself. Just tell us, I just want to A, thank you, and B, just give you an opportunity at a very high level to talk to us about who you are and what you do. Don't go deep because we're going to get there.
Okay. So I'm Don. When I was in college, I wanted to be a rock and roll journalist. So I had an internship at Billboard. And as everybody knows, Billboard is half trade magazine and half music magazine. And it turns out the rock journalism didn't pay the mortgage. So I ended up going into trade journalism, also known as B2B journalism, for the last, 40 years-ish, 35. So that has brought us to where we are today. But along the way, I've been to a lot of concerts and I've interviewed a lot of musicians on the freelance side.
And yet today you're in tech, and we are going to get there today.
Yes, one of my first enterprise B2B stories was PDF 1.0. PDF came out before Acrobat. So that was before the internet for you kids in Gen Z.
Got it. And before we go deeper into the tech, let's talk about the music a little bit. This might be my favorite slide here. Let's see if I can get there. Oh yes, this is Don's vinyl lounge. I had him send me a picture because he mentioned he had it, and I'm like, I need to see what this looks like. And my question to him is like, what's there that we don't see? We see a lot of vinyl, but what else is going on there?
Well, you don't see the jazz, which is in another room, because there's not enough room in this in the parlor here to contain all of the records. But when you're talking about toys, this is my toy right there. This big stereo rig with the tube amp and the mono blocks. And yeah, I was sitting in my mid-century modern armchair, and there's a love seat matching next to it. And really the best place to sit is in the middle because that's where you get the good stereo field and you can hear left and right in complete clarity. Anyway, on the
I mean,
wall, most of those pictures are autographed. I got people like Ben Folds, Booker T of Booker T and the MGs, Jimmy Smith, the organ player. I got Ahmad Jamal, the Smithereens, the Buzzcocks,
very cool.
Billy Childish.
What would I say? Very cool. And you were at that recent Jane's Addiction show where
Yeah,
there was an altercation on stage between Perry Farrell and Dave Navarro, and it was perhaps the end of the band forever, right? I think he punched him behind the stage.
perhaps. I think it is the end of the band forever because Barry has some issues that it appears like he'll never get over. But yeah, I'm standing behind the soundboard, probably about 6 rows behind the soundboard, and they played most of a full show. We didn't get Ben Caught Stealing, but pretty much everything else. But Farrell walks over to Navarro after dropping, I don't know, 10, 15 F-bombs and hauls off and tries to hit him. And then I thought it was one of those situations where a freaky fan got on the stage and rushed the stage to dance the music or whatever. But the guy next to me, my buddy Ed, says, "No, no, that's Farrell." And I'm like, "Holy smokes!" And then the bass player and the roadies dragged him off. And what we didn't see, but you could see in the video later, is the bass player got in some cheap shots punching Perry Farrell in the ribs. And so that's pretty much when we knew we knew the band was going to be over. When the bass player did that,
Good.
letting off some steam during
So
the
I
incident.
bet, yeah, I bet all of you out there didn't think we were going to be talking about punches and on stage altercations, but here we are.
Yes.
Um, so I think it's kind of cool to just talk about how we got here, and this is very quick because it's relevant to our discussion today. But Caroline Phipps on our team, on the Carve team, she was pitching Dawn, and one of those pitches landed, and we got a cool story for one of our clients. And then she reached out to Don and asked him to coffee, right? And I think it was in am I saying this correctly? Nashua? Is that where you live?
Nashua, New Hampshire. Yeah.
Nashua, New Hampshire. And you guys got together for coffee, and this led to where we are here today. And I know later you're going to talk about a bit about relationships. So I think it's just nice to show that where these things can lead. So hi, Carolyn. I hope you're out there. I know you're out there. Okay, so briefly, agenda, we're going to talk about TechTarget and then digging deeper on Dawn at work, not in his vinyl lounge. Some baseline media relations, some PR near misses, which we hinted at earlier, and then Q&A. In the meantime, our chat is open. Drop questions. We will try to get to them. And let's go. So TechTarget. Tell us at a high level what you cover and what you don't cover, right? Because sometimes it's easier to understand what something is by understanding what it isn't, right?
Our readers are enterprise technology buyers, IT people, CIOs. There's a lot of line of business people who might read our articles, whether it's a Salesforce user or the CEO, the CFO of a company who's trying to figure out what's coming up and how to budget, how to allocate budget for IT. These are true B2B readers, and we try and explain to them what's coming, what problems are happening with software that's out there now. We get a lot of traffic around, layoff stories and pricing changes and things like that. And I hope, there's a lot of how-to articles and sort of definitions. We have one of the internet's largest encyclopedias of IT terms. So if you have to go into a meeting and somebody says, well, we're going to fire up our vector database, and you don't know what a vector database is, but somebody's going to ask you about it, you can look it up on TechTarget and you'll get a very nuanced, in-depth definition, and you'll probably end up teaching the person who's asking the question a thing or two about vector databases. So And if I didn't get all of this right, my editor and boss, Bridget, is here watching today. At least she said she would. So you can ask her in the chat. So,
Bridget, hopefully you're here, you and
hi,
Caroline.
Bridget.
How does it differ like from another tech pub? What makes it different?
Oh, we don't cover like the next iPhone. We don't cover consumer things. If you're going to CES, maybe a few things will be covered. But most of the things that are for, if you can buy it at Target, you unlikely will read about it at TechTarget, right? So that's the main thing. Some business publications do say this is what's in the next iOS update or whatever to draw a lot of traffic to their sites, and TechTarget just doesn't do that. They'd much rather have a deep dive on some obscure Microsoft feature that's really going to affect, the way a CIO might deploy 365 or Microsoft, whatever, to 10,000 users. That's way more important than, you know, some new minor feature on iOS or Android.
Got it. Got it. Also, you cover more expensive things to a lot of ways to a business's bottom lines in a lot of ways.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so about Dawn, and I pulled this. This is probably a little old now. I know it's a little old now, but when we were putting together these slides, this was just like a look at your page of what you've covered recently. One of the things I noted, a lot of it falls under customer experience and content management, and I know you probably lean a little bit more customer experience. You were filing about 6 to 9 stories a month. I guess it really depended on the month, how many events there were, how much news broke, etc. And like this past month, you just came back from Dreamforce, so it was like a pretty busy month. But tell us about you at TechTarget specifically, what you do, what you cover.
Yeah, that's right. I cover customer experience, enterprise customer experience technology, as well as content management. And those terms are a little vague and squishy, and sometimes they overlap a lot because content management and digital experience really overlaps with customer experience. And we are constantly trying to figure out the right definitions of it in the Venn diagram. And sort of I look at it as like customer experience technology is CRM based, Salesforce and Oracle, right? That's your base is your CRM, and you build out a customer experience and website around that and marketing automation. Whereas digital experience, begins with content, and then you build out your website around that. And many digital experience systems plug directly into marketing and e-commerce, just as customer experience. And then other times, I might get tagged with some articles outside of that universe, quantum computing, for example. So we wear many hats on the news staff at TechTarget. And I never know what I'm going to be writing about today, especially if something crazy happens, the giant CEO change or something, it might be all hands on deck, and 5 of us are writing about the same story from a different angle. So that's pretty much how it works.
And I wanted to know about what sort of tech trends you're watching. The obvious one is AI, so you can start there, start with the obvious. But if there are other things that you're kind of watching, tracking, obsessing about lately, would love to hear it.
Yeah, it seems like for the last year, everything I've written about has a generative AI angle. But as you can see, that Oracle story I did, even that mentioned generative AI. But contact center, there's a lot about that going on because sometimes there's a lot of mergers and acquisitions or something that might not have a generative AI angle to it. Or uh, two very large companies partner up to have a super tight integration, and then one becomes a preferred partner of the other. That might not have generative AI. Or, a couple of years ago, HubSpot launched a CRM, which surprised everybody, and a lot of people were like, what's going to happen there? And it turns out that that thing has taken off like a rocket ship. So I'm not going to say it's number 2 in the market behind Salesforce, but it's creeping up the charts for sure. If we were at Billboard, it would have a bullet around the number, you know? So there you go.
And you said earlier, like you sometimes never know what you're going to be covering, but this is where curiosity sets in, and it's like, do you pitch stories? Do you get assigned stories? Is it a mix of both? How does that work?
Well, I've been at TechTarget since 2010, except for a little uh, wandering I did working for a PR agency, MSL Group in Boston. So um, I kind of follow my nose for news. I do get assignments on occasion, but I run most of my ideas by my editor. Hey, you want a story about this? Here's my angle, and here's why it's, you know, if it's a little bit far afield, I have to say, here's my angle, and this is why it's appropriate for customer experience because blah, blah, blah. You know, that might be a new regulation or something. It's like, yeah, this is a CX regulation when you think about it or whatever. So typically I come up with my own stories, but other times I do get a pitch. Sometimes it's a great interview availability. Sometimes it's we have this embargoed awesome thing coming out and I can get you an advance interview and a customer. And I'm like, yeah, I'm in. And other times news breaks and other times my editor sends me an email. Need a story about this by the end of the day. And I'm like, let's go, you know?
Yeah. Is that Bridget?
Yes, that's Bridget.
Hi, Bridget. And just imagining your day too, because you're at home right now, right? So are you like, how much are you at your desk, like, or are you collaborating with colleagues a lot? Like, how does that work?
That's probably 50-50, you
Okay.
know, because I'm lining up interviews, I'm scanning the trades, I'm uh, talking with PR people. That is actually part of my job. So, and collaborating with colleagues, yes. Um, you know, just stuff like I interviewed Will I Am of the Black Eyed Peas at Dreamforce.
We're getting to
And
that. We're getting to
what?
that. We're getting to that because it's one of
Yeah,
your recent best hits. So
right. So, but like one of my big threads last week was attempting to connect his people to our AI podcast people, so we can get Will I Am on as the guest for the very popular AI podcast. Unbelievable. I wish I could make a podcast that popular. But anyway, so you know that was a collaboration thread that I worked on for I don't know for several hours at least. So that kind of
yeah.
stuff.
Can you talk about this? Actually came from the audience because believe it or not, that's a third screen I have here with some questions, but this came from the audience. Can you talk about how TechTarget is structured? Because I know there's like a lot of sites within it and sections, and maybe just break it down a little bit.
Yeah, and again, Bridget can probably fill in some blanks that I inevitably will leave out, but we have a news group, and I'm part of the news group, and Bridget's the director of the news group, and we cover all these different technologies, but from, you know, product announcements, breaking news, trends. We have a Washington reporter, and she just kills it writing about, you know, the new FCC stuff or privacy regulations or big tech versus Congress, right? This is news. We are competing with the trades and in some cases, you know, big newspapers, big news organizations. And then we have another group of folks who are doing we call it evergreen content, you know, 10 ways to migrate your contact center to the cloud, you know, how GDPR enforcement is affecting how people protect personal data, you know, or
Okay.
PCI regulations, those deep things. We also have these content pieces called pillars, $15,000 or 15,000 word deep dives on topics, like generative AI or privacy or whatever. These topics are very important, but you wouldn't want somebody like me who's banging out 750 word stories every day, taking a month off to write 15,000 words on generative AI with interviewing 15 people. You just wouldn't. So we have two teams, two groups within editorial, uh, taking care of many different kinds of contents.
Got it. Okay, so let me set this up before we go here, but I thought like a good way for us to learn more about Don and TechTarget was to talk about some of what Don called them his recent greatest hits. I guess it's also like, a music reference. So what we have here are three greatest hits coming up, and Don's going to talk about like why did he enjoy working on them, like what made them kind of quote unquote successful in his eyes, like, and this would shed light a bit on Don, like what Don's looking for, and also on the magazine, right? Like, or sorry, magazine feels like an old term, but like on the outlet right now. So let's go to Don's greatest hit number one, and I'll let you take it away here.
Yeah, so I'm in San Francisco. I got there a little bit early, and I see these weird cars flying around. They're driverless taxis, I find out. And then I'm like, I have to ride one of these because I have a legendary fear of flying. And like, I can't teach my kids how to drive. The grandparents have to do it because in the passenger seat, I get nervous. And I see
Oh.
these things and I say, I have to overcome my fear. And so I called up a driverless taxi to take me to Dreamforce, take me from Ocean Beach to Moscone. And there it was. And I'm like, wow, I have to figure out a way to write about this because it was amazing. It was really calming. It was zen. This driver was not distracted by any cell phone or any other drivers or anything. It just was perfect. It was awesome for somebody like me. And then it turns out Benioff starts talking about it's the summer of AI. This is an AI moment with agents and Waymos. And I'm like, oh, I think I got an angle here. And and so and then Benioff had a press conference with media and analysts, and he talked more about it. And I asked him about it a little bit, and it's really a tenuous connection between Salesforce, Agentforce, which was their new product, and Waymo's. But I'm like, I still need a stronger angle if I'm gonna write about writing in a Waymo, making it relevant to CIOs who read my articles and get it by the goalie, who is my editor, who approves all my things. And so I asked will.i.am about it when I interviewed him. And he said, I don't know if I really like this driverless taxi stuff because that's going to take jobs away from a lot of people who need it. And will.i.am, of course, grew up in Los Angeles, and wasn't in the most upper class household for sure. So he's like, the bus drivers, the delivery people, I worry for them that AI is gonna take away their jobs. And I'm like, now I have a balanced column where I can write about the pros and the cons, and then also I put in some bit about Agentforce at the end. We saw some live demos, and I sort of glued it all together. But I like this piece because I was able to bring several disparate topics together into one coherent piece, at least in my opinion, right? You can decide for yourself.
Everyone read it here. I will send this later, and you could reach out to Don and let him know if you agree.
Yeah.
But I love what you're saying, because we often say that part of our job is to connect the dots. Like, we have to be connector of dots, because if you're just like plugging your client or your company, like, it's just going to fall flat. Like, what's the bigger trend? What else is out there that's going to make it a bigger story? So that definitely rings true for us.
Also, ChatGPT could not have come up with this article. So You know, I'm
They're
always thinking
back.
about how can I beat Chat GPT? How can I come up with something new that Google Gemini couldn't possibly think of?
It's
Right
like
there.
it's like that sign you see on the walls that says "Do something great today." Beat Chat GPT today.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, that and CX today. If I can beat both of them today, I'm doing okay. Anyway,
Okay, so your greatest hits number two, and this was the tied to the a recent regulatory ruling, right? Tell us about that.
an analyst friend of mine hits me up on LinkedIn and he's like, dude, one click to a human? Are you kidding me? And I'm like, what does this mean? And, 5 Google clicks away. And I'm like, this is a story I have to do. And it turns out that one click to a human at a contact center was only one tiny slice of a big pie. So we have click to cancel. We have numerous other regulations. It's part of a big package of things the Biden administration is going to do. And some of them are regulations now, some of them are going to go into effect, and some of them are still in the proposed draft stage. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I need sources. And I just searched through my email, and wouldn't you know, some people had already, some PR people had already said, hey, we have an opinion on this. Our client has an opinion. And I called them all up. And I had some analysts too. I had some other people in my back pocket I wanted to talk to about this, and you'll see all of them in the story, except for one that I forgot because I got so many interviews, and I'm actually going to feature them in a column coming up because I felt bad that I left them out of the story. So that PR person gets a full article about my click to cancel interview, but it's good
Leave us
stuff. It was.
out. Leave us out and just cover us on our own later. We'll take it. But this shows that like newsjacking, we talked about this earlier. You pay attention to newsjacking because you are looking for sources. One of the things you liked about this piece is how you got a variety of sources with a variety of opinions. So, and do you have any specific tips for people looking to newsjack properly? Like, is it all about the timing? What else would you say?
Well, I would prefer a kinder term. I would say I'm targeting coverage for my readers. I'm not Jack. Anyway, so
We
no,
do.
I am not. I'm not writing anybody's coattails. I'm not doing a Me Too story. I'm taking a news story and putting it in the context of these people who spend 5 figures, 6 figures, 8 figures, 9 figures on software every year. What do they need to know about this new regulation? So, any tips? Um, yeah. If there's a proposed regulation, hit me up on that because if I'm not writing about it, maybe our Washington reporter is,
Okay.
our big tech reporter, Mackenzie, who is awesome. You got to read her stuff. Mackenzie Holland. I'm
Okay.
throwing it out right there.
Let's do it.
She covers it like a blanket, and I'm so impressed with her work. But if there's a merger, if you have a client who's a consultant or a digital agency, and Salesforce buys some company or Adobe buys some company, like when they bought Workfront or whatever, or tried to, just you can hit me up. Digital agency says Workfront merger isn't going to work, or it's ideal because whatever. So let's see, how else would I?
Okay.
Anyway, things like that, big stories or CEO changes.
Yeah. I think
And
actually,
I'm not talking about CEO changes at some startup. I'm talking like Microsoft or one I covered, this guy, Bob Stutz. He's like a genius of customer experience. He's gone from Microsoft to Salesforce to SAP. And he's now retired, but when Bob Stutz moved, I covered it because he is like the Marlon Brando of CX, and when he moves, it's a story. So if somebody emails me a pitch. Bob Stutz at SAP is going to save their marketing suite. Boom. Hey, you might get into a story,
I
right?
would say, if you said that about me, I'd be like, Marlon Brando at what point in his career? I want to know.
Okay, okay. Let's say who's the dude who played Ken? But
Oh,
Ryan
Ryan Gosling.
Ryan Gosling. Okay, he's the Ryan Gosling of CX.
Okay, there we go. There we
Thank
go.
you, Mariello.
There we go.
Thanks for the
Okay.
save.
Uh, okay, and your greatest hits 3. This actually is tied to what you were just talking about. Tell us what you loved about this one, what we can take away from it.
I've been getting hit up with pitches about AI in the legal sector, and I get more pitches for the legal sector than all the other vertical sectors combined.
Hmm.
And after a while, I'm like, I gotta write about it, but I don't know how.
Yeah.
Because only a small slice of our readers really care about legal. I want to make a general interest piece. So I need to find somebody who will explain it in terms that non-legal people will understand, right? So pardon me while I grab a cup of coffee, or I sip of coffee here. So this guy, and I'm not really a big, our readers don't really care about the vendor perspective. They care about the user's perspective. They want their peers. But every once in a while, you can do a vendor. And this guy is a vendor startup. And he was willing to explain the nuts and bolts of how generative AI is changing legal. And so, first of all, it does speak to all of our legal readers. And it also speaks to other sectors who are thinking, other verticals who are thinking about replacing people with generative AI. How does it work? And this and that. And this guy took all of my questions.
Nice.
Like I would say, he would say something, and I came up with the question. So you're selling generative AI into the legal sector, and you're selling it to them that it saves a lot of time, but yet lawyers, they make their bank on billable hours. So how is this going? How do you sell to somebody with that mindset? And he answered, he's like, well, they're bringing more value to the clients and they can take on more clients. And then once they get the reputation of using generative AI to lower their fees, they'll get a lot more clients than the big boys across the street or whatever. And there was another great question he brought up.
No, but he was willing to go there. The source was willing
Yes,
to go
yes.
there and break it down for you and be honest and not like sugarcoat things where,
There was another one just as something. How do lawyers are very proud about their writing and their arguments? How do you get a lawyer to trust generative AI to write their closing argument when they feel like, they are the god of law and all this stuff? And because if you've talked to a lawyer, and I love talking to lawyers because they can put a sentence together when you're interviewing them. But how do you do that? Because they love this control. And he just simply said, oh, right now, these lawyers have, even the best lawyers have longtime paralegals drafting their copy. And this is like the paralegal can draft copies with generative AI and draft more of these and then sharpen them themselves and then hand it to the lawyer who sharpens it. Like he had all the answers. Anyway, it's quite informative, and I would hope it's entertaining to people outside of the legal vertical, because I really like this guy. And I find that when I like my interviewees, the article turns out better.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Okay, so you had some like very baseline advice for good media relations. I do want to get to the near misses, so let's try to stay high level on these. But these
Okay.
are 3 things that you said this is basic stuff, but you'd almost like be amazed at how often it's not carried out. So would love to talk about these 3 things. And this is the first one. Find out why journalists view some PR people as peer friends, learn their secrets. Like what is it about those relationships that are more than transactional that you can emulate, basically? What do they have in common?
Yeah, they reach out and we have personal conversations, and we, like Caroline of Carve said, let's go out for coffee. I have some business in Manchester, New Hampshire. You're on the way. And so I'm like, okay. And I'm
Okay.
always into, for lack of a better word, training a PR person on how to pitch me, right? And because when a PR person knows how not to waste my time, that's good for them. It's good for me. It's good for business. Good for the client. Whatever. Talk to me at trade shows. Step in. How you doing? You know, there you go.
Similarly, right? It's like, don't think of it as a pitch. You have this thing like transactional, like the pitch. So it's more engaging, be a resource, right? Like,
Yeah, I have somebody from Pegasystems who calls me, once a month. Hey, Don, what stories are you working on? We got some stuff coming out in July. Just touches base, right? And that's good. They're not necessarily calling me to pitch. And they email me. They say, hey, Don, can I call you this morning? And I'm like, yes, I do want to talk to you. And
so
that's
it's actual phone
engaging
calls. It's what people are calling you.
sometimes, but I don't call me out of the blue. Email me and say, hey, do you have time to talk to me? Or sometimes you can text me. I hate to say that, but it's in my signature. Hey Don, it's Mariella. I want to talk about blah. Do you have time for that? And I might say, no, I'm on deadline. Talk to me next week. Right? But if I have time, I'll talk to you.
I actually loved something you said before. It says, when a journalist contacts you for help, go the extra mile to make it happen. Like, it's so much about the back and forth, right? Like sometimes it's like we only think one way, but there really is the two-way street.
Yeah. Yeah, that I'll remember you that way. I have a story I'm working on this week. I killed it today because I couldn't get a fact check. The Google of all people wouldn't get back to me, and their agency PR, they're very, very good agency PR people. And yeah, I couldn't get an answer for a question, and it just went on long enough that I just killed it because they couldn't help me with a fact check. It was
Yeah.
more than a basic fact check. It wasn't something I could just write out of the story. It was pretty big. So anyway, there you go.
This is a quote, this is a Don quote that I had to share. There's a special place in heaven reserved for people who help out a journalist on deadline.
Absolutely.
I love it. This one is the like warning one, like send less spam on behalf of your clients so you don't end up in being blacklisted, essentially. And my question there is like, say, so what, okay, sending spam, like, what are those things that like just get you blacklisted? Like that we should not do.
I get a lot of off-topic stuff. If you're not talking to me about customer experience or content management, or if you have just the most tenuous connection to one of those, leave me alone. I wrote about healthcare 10 years ago. If you're still sending me healthcare pitches, I'm just gonna block you because I don't care if your next thing is customer experience. I just don't.
Okay. Okay. Don't send Don like hair product bitches.
Oh gosh.
Do
All
it
of us
different.
at TechTarget get pitches from this company called Pockies. Everybody, every single person. And it's boxer shorts with pockets. And so with pictures, we're like, not again. Anyway.
I could put my eye mask in there. Okay, finally, the near misses, what I put here is a pitch that would have landed with a few tweaks. What we liked about this when you mentioned this to us was like, it's not those like failures that you hear about. Like it's not like people were totally off. Like everyone has had near misses. Everybody has near misses the other day. And it's like, what was it about them that didn't get them to land? And that's what we're gonna do with these next three. We've anonymized all these, so it's really it's about the takeaway. But let's go through these. Let's go through these. So this one, the takeaway was you read my story, but you didn't use that tactic in the right way. Like that idea of like, hey, I just read your story. Like there's a way to use that. That's a better way to use that, right?
Yeah, a second day angle would be, so the first day angle is Google decided not to deprecate cookies. I write the story. Now what's next? Preparing, or how do you reevaluate your advertising budget? How do you reevaluate your software budget? Will adware have a permanent role in the marketer's mix? Those are second day angles right there, right? It's not, we already wrote about deprecating third-party cookies and the fact that Google decided not to. So give me something I can use and maybe I'll pick it up because it's still fresh on everybody's mind.
Yeah. Yeah. What can you add that's new? This one, the already published case study.
Yes.
You
If-
love case studies though, right?
What?
You love case studies.
I like doing them, yes, especially when you have a really cool customer with a really great story. I have one on Ben and Jerry's ice cream using a particular software vendor coming out soon, and it's a awesome story. So, but we don't want to write about things that are already on the client's website, or Consumer Reports did a feature on it, like whatever. Now, I'm not going to write a Me Too story. Even if you get me like the coolest customer in the world, it's like I'm not breaking any news. I'm breaking the vendor's news that's already been broken, right? So if you say to me, yeah, we have the California Angels writing about our contact center and AI service agents, and then I Google that and it's already on the vendor's website, it looks like I'm just writing more vendor marketing content, except it's on TechTarget, which is a bad look for me. So don't do it.
But so what if, here's a situation I think we find often, that there might be something published on a client's website, but it's like 3 years old. And since then, X, Y, and Z have happened and they just haven't had time. It just hasn't been updated. So we might be able to give you like, what is the current version of that with the customer and with, the new product features and things like that, and like metrics. Is that doable?
100% good.
Okay.
But you would have to say that because the first thing I'm going to do is Google it. If I see it on the vendor site, but if you say, look, this is a crusty old thing that we're going to update in the next 6 months, we'll give you an exclusive first look, because we've gone all the way around in a circle and we're going to, and now that they're doing interviews for the update, we'll cut you into the action. What do you say, Don? Yes.
Okay.
And then I can ask him about all kinds of things that have happened in the last 3 years. Like, wow, what you doing with generative AI? Wow, what peripheral software or related software did you upgrade? Wow, yes, that would be great.
Okay. Good to know. That's super helpful. And then this was a near miss, and I think it has to do with the size of the company for a personnel announcement. But you also offer some tips for a twist on how to approach that.
Yeah. So if there's a new CEO, if it's of Acquia or some vendor I cover, oops.
Anonymized.
Acquia, Content Stack, whatever. And or Pegasystems or one of the large vendors. Yeah, I'll probably cover that CEO change. But if it's a startup, I really don't care. But if you have a CEO who wants to talk about third-party cookies and they have a hot take, like put that hot take in the subject. CEO of startup thinks that Oracle is going in the wrong direction or whatever. I won't cover that it's the new CEO, but if I'm thinking about this and then I might happen to know an analyst who agrees with this person and I might be able to get a balanced story out of that, or CEO thinks new CEO is banking on generative AI, changing marketing automation forever. Ooh, I'll think about that. Right? Do you have a hot take?
Okay.
And it can't be absurd, it can't be like generative AI is going to take over the earth and the singularity is here. As logical as that might sound, and it might already be here, um, I can't. That's not a story that CIOs care about, right?
Yeah, and in the end, that's really like that's the bottom line. Like, do our CIOs going to care about this?
Yeah, or CMOs or
It's me.
CFOs who buy the software, or CEOs who want to make sure that their company's image is not, we pawn you off to service bots that send you in an endless loop and make you so frustrated you go to the competitor, right? It's this.
Yeah. Okay. Q&A. So Don, we've been having so much fun here. We are at 3:17 now, and I told you
It's
we'd probably
okay.
be off at around 3:15. So maybe just a
It's
couple
all
more minutes.
good.
Okay. Um, what about like one of the questions we had come in was like, what about just like intro pitches? This is something that um we've been talking about as a team. Like sometimes it's just like we have a new client, like people don't know who they are, we just want to intro them. Like, are you open to that? Like, how would you approach that if you were a PR person?
Pitch it as a founder story, and
Okay.
I might. I
Okay.
love founder stories. My education was in magazine journalism, so I like
Yep.
anytime you can get human interest
Yep.
into a beat. I spend all day writing about incremental updates to cloud software. We don't even get shiny boxes with stuff in it anymore. So if you can give me a human interest angle and a founder story that catches my attention, that's the way to do it.
We like to call them origin stories just to get them like get in the comic book hero frame, It's kind of like, what is the origin story of this brand or why does it exist? Like that kind of thing.
Okay, enjoying
Yeah.
it.
Storytelling. Storytelling. So one that came in is somebody asked, hi Don. I like we hear so much about people, PR people trying to make a connection with a journalist through like a personal interest. Like you and I have a personal interest in music. There could be a million things. Like I know you're also a collectibles fan, and we've talked about some of your interests here, but like sometimes it's hard to find those things. Sometimes reporters think it's creepy. Like, where do you fit? Like, what would you say to that, to navigating that?
Well, you're a people person. You call up somebody and you'll figure it out right away. As a journalist, I need to read the people I'm interviewing pretty quickly because I don't want to quote, a buffoon who doesn't know what they're talking about in an article. So I know how to read people pretty quickly. You hear the way they talk and the claims they make. And you can call up a reporter, and if a reporter's too busy or if a reporter seems like an introvert, you can't go gee, what music do you like, right? You just have to ask, how do you like to be pitched? And what are the topics that are most helpful, and what bothers you about people who are pitching you now? And then if they offer a little something, or I put the music thing in my bio at
Yeah.
TechTarget, so I get a lot of, hey, you listen to records? Whoa, cool. And so yeah, and sometimes half the interview is talking about the ins and outs of Japanese Santana pressings versus American. So but you just read the person's bio, maybe read their bio from their last job and the job before that, and you can pretty much get an idea. Is this person who's really proud of awards they've won, or do they seem to dote over their kids and mention their kids whenever they can? You know, do a little journalistic research on the person before you call them and introduce yourself.
Do you have any guidelines for us about how much detail is too much detail in a pitch? Like, how much do you need to know?
If it's not in the subject line in the first sentence, chances are it's going to be on my marked red list before I get to the good stuff. So,
Okay.
I'm sorry to put it that way, but unless it's a name I recognize, I'll know Caroline from Carve from here to eternity because we went out for coffee. But 99% of the PR people I've who pitch me, I've never met. So you better have a good subject line and a good first sentence. Otherwise, I might miss it.
Yeah. It's interesting because some of the ones you shared with me, I was actually shocked at how long they were. And they were on the near misses. And to me, it was like, whoa, there's so much information there. But like you were somewhat open to it. Maybe it's because you had a relationship with the person, but yeah,
Well,
there was,
also though, the one argument for writing long pitches is sometimes, when say I get assigned a story, I go to my Outlook and I search on keyword terms and I'll get 10 pitches on that topic. And so maybe if your old pitch had something relating to my new story today, maybe your long pitch just helped you. So I
yeah, and
don't.
actually that's a good point and question to end it on because you said something earlier today that caught my attention. I was like, let me come back to this because you were saying like the legal profession, you were getting a lot of all of a sudden you were getting a lot of pitches tied to it and AI. And you just mentioned again, like you're saving, some of these pitches if they don't hit your blacklist, your spam folder, whatever. So it's like it's almost like you're also scoping for trends in what PR people send you, like you're using your inbox as, it helps. It really is a resource in a lot of ways.
Yes, yeah, and I have a special folder for like really near misses of somebody I might want to do a Q&A with if it's like a slow month. Like December, no product news comes out or very little. So I go to my tickler folder and, 5 people I thought, I'd like to do a Q&A with them someday. I'll go look, or end of year pieces.
Yeah,
I might want
predictions.
to say, what?
Do you do predictions or like for people?
So some tech target people do predictions. I think predictions personally, this does not reflect on my peers' work, but personally, I think predictions are like so hit or miss, and they're more miss than hit, that I prefer to call it trend stories. This happened this year. What's going to happen next year? Like generative AI got this far. What's the next step for generative AI to saturate the contact center, right? That's not a prediction. That's not like, oh, robots will replace 60% of agents next year. No, robots will replace 60% of humans. I don't really care about those, but I do care about, well, robots will, AI agents will cut, call time down 10 seconds, which is huge for a very large enterprise like Citibank. Okay, now we have something to talk about. And that's kind of a prediction, but I call it a trend story.
Yeah,
You would call it trend jacking.
maybe. All right, this has been awesome. Is there anything else you wanted to get across before we say goodbye? I will leave here like about how to reach you and us. And you were the one that said to text you. I was gonna say like don't text him, but
Oh, if you text me, identify yourself, because if it's just a number and hey, what do you think about blah? I won't answer that. But if it's hey, it's Don from TechTarget and I'm looking for blah, right? Then I'll think about it. But anyway, okay, that's all I got.
Okay.
Thank you for having
Thank you.
me.
Really appreciate it. Go pick up your kid. I know
I will.
we don't want them waiting. Thank you so much. We'll
Yeah,
talk
yeah.
later. Bye-bye.
Peace out.